To truly understand my perspective, you have to sort of switch yourself off to everything you know about Christianity and everything you've been taught. So I don't call myself a Christian in a sense of all the other Christians. I call myself a Christian in the sense of a human being who's arrived in this world and looked for God, knowing that He exists. I believed the story of His Son because I, for some reason, that resonated with me in a sense of that at God's core, at His heart, is love. And so sacrificing His Son was sacrificing the proof of why He created everything. But there's more complexity to that anyway. But I'm not don't call me a Christian in that sense or a Bible believer or anything like that. Just for example, a friend who I grew up with recently converted to Christianity, and I was having discussions with him on this, and I said, it's all wrong, it's all upside down. Christianity is actually antichrist. It's designed to create an image of what Christianity is in case anybody does get converted, that they're going to join up with the mythology. Once you do have a sense of seeking God, what you're only going to seek God within the framework of the assumptions that have been given to you, and just assumptions that are in your mind from hundreds of years or thousands of years of brainwashing being passed down. So I said to this friend, look, I met Jesus, right? Not through a book, not through people's teaching, nothing. I met Him simply because I believed Him. I believed God. I knew that God existed. It wasn't some theory to me. And through whatever means, I eventually met Him, through the means that God has set, right? Where God has a rule. This is how you approach me. I hadn't followed that rule, but eventually when I did, then I finally met God. And I met Jesus as well. And his spirit is indescribable. It was just pure light. So when I say I saw Him, I mean I saw His spirit. I saw everything else went dark, and it was just the figure of the spirit. And I was shown that twice. I was shown Jesus once, and the second time I was shown the material, the spiritual material that exists, which is to be given to mankind. So the spirit of man will inhabit the material of Jesus Himself. This is the first being, the first creation, the being that was created to be as powerful as God Himself, that God created, which in turn He denied in order to become the Son. So I asked this friend of mine, look, we talking about Jesus, you talking about Jesus. I know you're talking about a different Jesus. You're talking about a Jesus who you read about in a book, and you created from your interpretation of that. That's what Christianity is. There's no spirit of God which unites everybody. There's a Bible which you interpret, and that's what unites you. So it cannot be true. If all Christians knew the same Jesus, then there would be a perfect unity between the billions of Christians that exist in the world. So I said to him, okay, well, leave that aside. I met Jesus personally, and after I met Jesus personally, I rejected absolutely everything I know. But then I started reading the Bible, and suddenly I started understanding things in the Bible which were not humanly possible to understand. And everybody else's preaching, and that just started making me sick, because I realized these people have got absolutely no clue what this book means or what's said in it. Technically, though, there is no Bible. It's just a collection of books written by people who had contacts with this particular God. And so later on in history, people put it together and called it the Scriptures and all of that. So I appreciate it as Scripture, and I take the information in it as superior to my own opinion. But my faith lies in a living person called Jesus, the Anointed One, not the Christ or the Messiah. So that was my faith, and that was true faith, and that's the faith that God expects from us, but we don't have that. And even if you have that moment of looking into your consciousness and away from your physical reality, what you're going to find is some assumption, or some type of Christianity, and you'll go there, you'll realize it doesn't really match with your epiphany, so you'll go to another church until you find a church that preaches the gospel that you want to hear. So I asked this friend of mine, wouldn't you rather meet Jesus and then Jesus explain and teach you a whole lot of things personally, right? His spirit lives in you, so He starts opening your understanding up to certain metaphysical concepts. And then when you start to read the Bible, you realize that the people in that Bible had the same spirit and were talking about the same thing. And, there was a time when I used to read the New Testament and I used to keep thinking, how on earth do these people know, like on the surface of it, it seems prosaic, but if you can understand the context, the actual physical real world context which led to writing those stories, it's very hard to relate to it in that way. So I would read the Bible and I'd be like, wait, how does this guy know this stuff? Like this guy has been on the same journey that I've been on, whether it's Paul or Peter or whoever. So yeah, I asked this friend, Corny, wouldn't you rather have that? Wouldn't you rather meet the living Jesus himself without any physical help, except his own faith that he's given you, and then have him teach the scriptures to you? Or would you rather have a religion where you go to church every Sunday and listen to somebody extract something written in the Bible and try and tell you about Jesus from that? I mean, which is better? If I meet a spirit, call it Jesus, he teaches me to understand the Bible perfectly, versus going to a church and reading the Bible, being confused about it, and trying and drawing your own interpretation from it. I mean, which is better? And this guy said, no, sorry, his version is better. Because it's a matter of faith. You see, that's what faith is. Faith is not believing. Faith is knowing, right? Faith is knowing, and faith is trusting. So believing something makes it knowledge, causes it to become knowledge. But believing the truth means that you wanted the knowledge in the first place. So knowledge, also truth, God's truth always comes to you in a form that you can't accept. I mean, Jesus came to his people performing miracles, raising the dead. They still killed him because he didn't confirm the religion which they had so strictly adhered to, and it was a cult of legalism. The Pharisees were super legalistic people. And by the way, rabbinical Judaism is a descendant of the Pharisaic writings. So Judaism is not even the actual Jewish religion. Right, so that's an explanation on faith. And faith, it's like your parent. You don't need to go to school to know that you have a father and a mother. You don't have to go to school to be taught what that father and mother expects from you. So one would think that God would be offended, and that was the primary evil I had committed before God when I had my moment of meeting him, of fearing God. As it's written 3 times in the Old Testament, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So I hadn't had the respect for God or the fear of God according to how he should be feared, according to his own truth. So from that moment, he was able to cause me to die to myself. So I rejected every opinion I had, everything I'd learned, everything that made me feel good about myself, all the information. I completely rejected it, and I prayed one day and I said, God, I want you to teach me. And then after that, I started learning things which I'm pretty sure no other human being on this planet will be able to tell you. I hope that there are people who can, but I'm going to put myself out there and say that. Okay, so that's faith. Faith is knowing God. It's not an idea, right? It's a knowledge.